Good evening, guys. I hope everybody's had a lovely Monday, although I think quite a few of you have maybe had the day off so that you can have a long weekend. So I will keep this short and sweet. It really is just a catch-up collab with you guys to see who has got questions, how you're doing, where you're stuck, what do you need help with. So please don't forget, let me have those questions. You can send me a message via Learn in the message system or other an email. But please, guys, also remember, if you do send me an email, you have to make very, very clear in that email which module you are messaging me from. So that I know which module we are talking about. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to wait to see if anybody else is going to join. Otherwise, I will just go ahead and record this so that those of you who are at home can listen after the long weekend. Okay, so as I said, this evening is just a collab to catch up on what questions you've got, who needs help, and what you need help with. So there's just a few things that I want to check in with you first, just to give you some kind of a grounding in where exactly we are. So today is the 20th of March, Monday the 20th of March. So today is the first day of week 4 of the semester. So in terms of your PACER, this is where we are. So I'm just going to take you through the first couple of learning units so that you know exactly where you should be and what work you have to cover for your first assignment. And I'll talk a little bit about what we're going to help you with the first assignment so that when you get there, you know exactly that you've covered everything that you need to for that first assignment, and that you know exactly when it's got to be in. Okay, so today is the first week of week 4 of the semester. So if you have a look on the screen, I've put the PACER up here. So learning unit 1, Introduction to Business Bookkeeping and Accounting. And I did upload a small video regarding this to your YouTube playlist today. And as I think I have said to you guys before, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel so that whenever I upload a video, you get a notification and you know that there is a new one. I'm quite happy. I see that all the videos that I'm uploading, there are continuous views on the different videos. So I know that the students are receiving them and they are watching them. So that's great news. So learning unit 1, in terms of the PACER, you should have covered that in the first academic week. Now, I know that a lot of students didn't have access to their module and they were waiting for textbooks, and that first week is always a little bit of a hit and miss. So please don't panic if that wasn't the case. You have got time to catch up. Our academic week in terms of the PACER, they pace the learning units over 12 weeks. But we do have 16 weeks before the exam. So you've got those extra 3 or 4 weeks at the end that you can use to catch up and revise for the exam if there's anything that you have missed. So this first learning unit is really, as we've said before, just a bit of theory, introduction, background, but it is important and you must read it. And then, as we have also discussed, that on the second page of our module outline, they give us our learning objectives. So we've got 2 themes in LU1. What is accounting and why do we record financial information? And then within each of these are the learning objectives, which are the learning outcomes, which tells you that these are the questions that you will be asked in assessments. So for your assignments, it'll be easy. You'll have your books in front of you, but this is what you have to memorize for the exams. And if it's a learning objective, they can ask any one of these. So uses and uses of accounting, explain the principles illustrate the accounting cycle. We've been through that. We know how important the accounting cycle is, and that accounting cycle is included in that set of in that video that I've uploaded today, and so on. So you guys know now how your learning objectives work. They're very important. It tells you exactly what you need to have mastered in order to be ready for the assessments. Then in our second learning unit, this is the accounting equation and the double entry system. This one you should have done in weeks 2 and 3. So basically have finished this up by the end of, let's say, this weekend that's just passed. This one is a lot of theory, but this learning unit 2 is a lot more practical, where there are some skills you have to learn, quite a bit of memorization, but very particularly a lot of understanding that you've got to master in terms of what is the accounting equation and how does it work, and what do we mean by the double entry system. So again, both of these concepts are covered in the video that I uploaded today. And remember, I'm waiting for your questions so that I know exactly which parts of these, if any of this, that you need help with or that you want any further explanation, so I can do that for you. So for your learning unit 2, your themes are, there's 3 of them, the building blocks, and this is very important. These are the elements that we use in accounting that builds up our accounting information system. So our assets, our liabilities, and our income and our expenses. So your textbook lays these out very carefully, explains them beautifully, gives you definitions, and also gives you some exercises to do to make sure that you understand them. So the building blocks is the assets and the liabilities. The accounting equation we know is assets minus liabilities equals owner's equity. So the proprietary account is then our owner's equity. Owner's equity is equal asset, oopsie, where's my capital assets minus liabilities. I'll come back to you in a second with that, Jess. It is extremely confusing, and I think it is probably the most confusing thing with accounting, and you really do need to allow yourself time to understand that, and then go ahead with the rest. But often you find that as you do these exercises in Learning Unit 2, the accounting equation and double entry system, they give you lots of exercises and lots of examples of giving you practice in analyzing various transactions under the accounting equation. And I think often when you go through those, particularly the examples, that helps you to understand it, rather than just looking at those theoretical pages right at the beginning where they've got pluses and minuses, and it's very confusing to see what's going on. So let's just take a look at this, finish this off quickly. The one is assets and liabilities, and our theme 2 is then the profit, which is income minus expenses equals profit. And then our profit gets added back to our equity, and that's our, what we call our accounting cycle that goes round and round. Then a theme 3 is how does the double entry system work? And this is where you do these exercises analyzing transactions. So they'll say the company purchased some inventory, or the owner contributed some money to the company, or we sold some goods to somebody. Those transactions, how do we then put those under the accounting equation? So I would also maybe suggest, before you start trying to understand the pluses and the minuses of the T accounts, come and work with these analyzing transactions under the accounting equation first, and then go back to that plus and minus. And I can promise you it will make a lot of sense. Okay, let me just have a look. So let me just see exactly what it is you're battling with. Confusing between these two, the debit and the credit system. So And it changes to opposite sides. Yeah. Okay. So with all of our general ledger accounts, we call them T accounts. And we call them a T account because they are in the shape of a T. So on the left-hand side, that is when we debit any account, no matter if it's an asset or a liability or an income or expense, if I want to debit the account, I will put the amount on the left-hand side. If I want to credit an account, again, no matter which kind of account it is, I will put the amount on the right-hand side of the account. So debit and credit really means left and right. Debit means left-hand side, credit means right-hand side of the account. Then after that, there are the four main accounts, types of account. And over here, we are talked at the top here, these building blocks. We've got assets and we've got liabilities, and we've got income and we've got expenses. So with those, we want to learn what is, how do each of those four accounts behave in terms of when do I debit the account and when do I credit the account. So we've got a little, I don't know if you want to call it an anagram or a little cheat sheet thing called DEAD CLIC. I don't know if you've ever come across this. And this, if you just learn this, you will always know exactly when to debit an account and when to credit an account. So with the first word DEAD, the first D stands for debit. So these accounts, EAD, will always increase. In other words, the total amount in the account will increase on the debit side. So what is EAD? E is expense accounts, A is assets, and my D stands for drawings. Assets, expenses, and my drawings account. If I want to increase an expense, so for instance, I've gone and purchased more stationery. So when I buy stationery for my business, that's an expense. So I've got my stationery expense has increased, and let's say I bought 100 rands worth of stationery. I will go to my stationery T account and I will write the 100 rand down on the left-hand side. So I have increased plus an expense by recording the amount on the left-hand side on the debit side of the account. If I have got something like an asset, so say for instance, my bank account is an asset, and which accounts are expenses, which accounts are assets, that you have to get used to. Let me just quickly look at the page number on page 53 in your textbooks. There is a chart of accounts, what they call a chart of an accounts there. That really lists most of the common accounts that you will come across in all of the questions that we do in this first part of your book. Assets, first column, and it tells you, it gives you a little explanation or examples of what are non-current and what are current assets. It gives you a list next to that of all of the expenses, and then next to that all of the different types of income, and then lastly on the right-hand side all of the accounts that we call liability accounts. So a lot of that you've got to memorize, but always go and refer back to this page 53 if you're not sure if an account you're using, is it an expense, is it a liability, is it an asset, is it an income? Okay, that's an important page. So for instance, what I was saying, if you've got an asset and it's a bank account and it's an asset, and you have to pay somebody some money out of your bank account, this means that your bank account is going to decrease. If my asset, which is one of these DEAD accounts, if it increases on the debit side, it will decrease on the credit side. So if I'm paying somebody 200 rand, I will go to my bank account, my bank T account, and on the right-hand side, which is the credit side, I will write down 200 Rand. That indicates that my bank account, which is an asset, is going to decrease on the right-hand side by 200 Rand. So all of these DEAD accounts, the EAD, expense asset drawings, they always increase on the debit side and decrease on the credit side. Then when we get to the CLIC accounts, dead CLIC, C stands for credit. So these are all of the accounts that will increase on the credit side and decrease on the debit side. So these are L for liabilities. Probably didn't spell that right, but and I, all of my income accounts, different types of income, revenue, rental received, and then the final one is C, and that is my capital account, which is my owner's account. Okay, so there's your CLIC. So these accounts, when the amount in this account is going to increase, I must put the amount on the right-hand side, on the credit side. So liability is money that I owe somebody. So let's say I have got a trade credit I'm purchasing inventory from, and I buy it from him on credit. So that means every time I purchase money, I purchase inventory from him, the amount I owe him increases. So their liability is going to increase. So my trade creditors T account, each time I purchase inventory on credit, I'm going to write the amount down on the right-hand side because liabilities increase on the right-hand side, the credit side. Same thing with income. If I sell goods and I make a sale, my sales account, sales revenue, every time I make a sale, I put the amount down on the right-hand side of the sales account to increase, to indicate that my sales revenue, which is an income account, has increased. If I've got a property that I rent and I've got a rental income account, every time I invoice for the rental, I indicate that the amount of rental income that I have got has increased. I also put that on the right-hand side of the rental account. So EAD accounts increase on the debit side. So when I have an increased expense or an asset increases, or the owner takes more drawings, I will debit the account. My CLIC accounts will increase on the credit side. So if I've got a liability that increases, if I have got more income that I've earned, or if the owner's capital account increases, I will write that amount down on the right-hand side of the account. This is just a system that you have to learn. You have to memorize it. This is the system that was drawn up, that we were given. This is how it works. And if we stick to it, our trial balance will always be in balance. Our accounting equation will always balance. And when we come to drawing up our income statement and our balance sheet, everything there will also be correct if we stick to these rules. So basically what they're doing, they've given us a set of rules. We have to learn the rules and absolutely stick to them like glue. And we know that our bookkeeping as such will be correct. I don't know if you find that, was that helpful at all, Jess? I know it can be quite difficult to read this type of stuff in a textbook and then kind of think, what are they talking about? They've got pluses and minuses all over the page, and I'm not sure what's going on. And again, honestly, with this part of the accounts, there isn't any substitute for going over those examples, over the examples, particularly of these analyzing equations under the analyzing transactions under the accounting equation, and then practicing questions. Just practice, 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 and the more you go over it, the more familiar it becomes. The more you also remember what these different, what is an asset, what is an expense, because that also takes time to get used to identifying those accounts correctly. Yeah, there's a lot of memorization involved in this because it's a set of rules that we just have to learn. There's not a lot of understanding about it. at this point? No, a debit isn't a minus and a credit is not a plus. That's the whole thing. And it also tells you that in your textbook. Debit just means left-hand side. Credit means right-hand side. Because if I've got an asset that's increasing, I will put a plus 100 Rand on the left-hand side, on the debit side. If I've got a liability that's increasing, I will put a plus of whatever the amount is on the right-hand side. So in the analyzing under the accounting equation, my liability could plus or minus, depending on if the liability is increasing or decreasing. And my asset could also plus or minus, depending on whether the asset is increasing or decreasing. Okay. So I'm just trying to quickly find that page number. Yeah, so just put that idea of a debit is a plus and a credit is a minus out of your head. Debit is left-hand side, credit is right-hand side. Okay, it is explained in your textbooks. I'm not going to find it now if I try and look for it quickly. But I know if you read through your textbook, it specifically explains that. If I find the correct page number, I will let you know. Yeah, I don't see it right this minute. Okay, but again, honestly, your textbooks are really, really good. They're very well laid out. They've got excellent explanations and the examples are really good. And if you follow the examples in your textbook and you make sure that you've understood the example from start to finish, and then go and practice with the questions, you just have to keep at it. There isn't a substitute for spending hours, literally, with the work, practicing it and going over it, memorizing what needs to be memorized, and then practicing. Okay, so hopefully that's going to help you. If you go back and have a look at that work now, hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense. And then where we are now today, day 1 of week 4, Learning Unit 3, VAT and source documents. We should cover this in week 4. So hopefully at some point during this week, you will have time to look at Learning Unit 3. Then just to also let you get some kind of bearings as to where you are with your assignment. Your first assignment, assignment 1, is on Learning Unit 1 to 4. So we also then have to cover Learning Unit 4 for the assignment before we're ready for that. And your Learning Unit 4 is in week 5, which will be next week. So next week, you should plan to cover recording cash transactions, and then you'll be ready to start looking at your assignment. So our next collab will be, let me just make double sure. Yes, our next collab will be on Wednesday, the 12th of April, which is just after Easter. And then the week immediately after that, also on the Wednesday, the 19th of April, we will have our national support session for assignment 1, where we will then go over each individual question in detail. I'll explain where you need to find everything for the assignment, and you can ask again any questions. So we've got one more collab after this to cover Learning Units 1 to 4 with any questions that you've got. And then we've got a full support session just on the assignment. And then the assignment due date is then Friday, the 28th of April, which will be another week after the collab. Okay, so hopefully that will give you some kind of a plan of exactly where we are now and where we're going to and what's going to happen between now and then. Okay, so that you can plan and you can pace yourself against that. Okay, then this morning I did upload videos for, I think it was Learning Unit 1, 2, and 3. So the intro, accounting equation, double entry system, and VAT and source documents, just short videos with a bit of background. And then I will upload next week when we get to week 5 and you are doing Learning Unit 4, I will upload a video for that learning unit as well. So you've got something just to help you. Okay, so what I want to do now quickly is just show, let's keep an eye on the time. I just want to show the students how they should be using Learn in conjunction with their textbook and your workbook in order to guide yourself through each learning unit. Because remember, you want to make the absolute best use of all of the resources that VC provides for you. You've got an excellent textbook, you've got a workbook that goes together with that to practice your questions in, and you have got the Learn system that supports your working through each learning unit in the textbook as you go along. So on the screen that you can hopefully see now is your module screen. So on your module, where you go to your learning units, you then get this screen. It might look slightly different on the tutors mode. Your mode might look slightly different. You'll have a list of all of your learning units. So let's say, for instance, if we go to Learning Unit 2, if you click through there, you will then see at the top the learning objectives, which we've looked at in the module outline now, will always be listed right at the top. That tells you exactly what you are expected to be able to do by the time you have finished this learning unit. And then underneath that, they will have listed the theme. So theme 1, the building blocks, which we saw was assets minus liabilities equals equity. So that's our accounting equation. And the second theme is what is profit, and profit is income minus expenses equals profit. And then our theme 3, how does the double entry system work? And then here we've got some information about that again. So if you click into one of the themes itself, it will then take you through to some really good resources where they will have some questions to think about. Wherever there's a blue text, if you click on that, it will take you through to an article, a website, a video, something that will be an added resource that will be maybe in more user-friendly language than your textbook, and you'll be able to read through that, watch a video, and get some more information about that particular section or theme that you are learning about. So you can see here, most of these are in nice chatty type of language that might be a little bit easier to understand perhaps than the textbook. So always please use this in conjunction with your textbook. Read through all of these little links that they give you. And this particular one, I don't see a video. Like for instance, here you go down the rules of double entry. And again, if you click on what is the double entry system, it will take you to another resource with some more explanations. I just want to find you. Here we go. And if you keep going down, this is always in order in your textbook. So if, for instance, we've started here with debit and credit, they ask you some questions, they give you an article to read. Then underneath that, they say, study the examples in Learning Unit 2 of the textbook. So you should have your textbook open in front of you. Have a look at the examples and note how the individual transactions are recorded in the accounting equation. When you're happy with that, you go down to the rules of double entry. Then you read these little notes, read through that, and it says to you, when you at this part of the work, you work through example 2.9, and then you should, after that, understand double entry system. When you've done that, explore the infamous rules of double entry in Learning Unit 2.3 of the textbook. So they're telling you exactly where in the textbook you will find this particular theme. Then when you've worked through those rules and you've read them and you kind of have an idea, then reinforce your understanding and come here and watch these 2 videos. If you click on the video itself, it will show you the video sort of on screen in a sort of a small version. If you click on the blue YouTube, it takes you to YouTube itself, and you can watch the video in full screen in YouTube itself. So you can see by following these steps on Learn, it's really going to enhance your understanding rather than just paging through a textbook and not and maybe getting bored along the way or getting a bit lost. So after you've watched those videos, then go and complete question 2.9 in Learning Unit 3, and this activity will then test your understanding of basic double entries. So by the time you've done that, you'll then start getting an idea of, okay, am I getting it? Am I understanding? Can I do this question? And then so forth. Then you work through example 2.11 and so forth. It takes you through. Okay. And everything you need to work through the textbook is in Learn, right here, with some interesting interactive graphics and videos that you can follow. I just want to follow the other thing that I wanted to show you. I don't keep you too long. The other thing that I wanted to just show you while I'm on Learn is also how to find your Ask Tasks. I've also posted your Ask Task list for you this last week, and I know sometimes the students have trouble finding them. So you'll see on your Ask Task list, just see if I've got one here. I said that all of your Ask Tasks are Learn activities, which means you will find all of your Ask Tasks here in Learn. And the way that the activity number works, let me quickly come on, where's one of my Ask Tasks? Sorry, just give me a second. I'm going everywhere into all of them except in where my Ask Task is. And there must be one in theme 1. Let's have a look. There we go. Okay, so on your Ask list, it will say activity 2.1.1. So the way you find that on Learn is the first number indicates the learning unit, so Learning Unit 2. The second number indicates the theme, so Learning Unit 2, Theme 1. And the third number is then the activity within that theme. So Learning Unit 2, Theme 1, Activity 1. I have put the word Ask in front of all of the activities that are Ask Tasks on Learn for you to make it easier for you to find them, but that is how you then trace your Ask Task on Learn, how you find it. You complete the task on Learn itself. So this is a test. It says click above the red arrow. So when you click on that, it will open up the test. And over here down on the right hand side, click begin, and it will take you into the test, and you can start working through it. And of course, all your different Ask Tasks are different activities. Some are wikis, some are blogs, some are discussions, but all of them include the instructions of what you need to do, and they are all completed on Learn itself. Okay, so sorry, Jess, I'm just coming back now. I wanted to just finish that. That was all that I really wanted to demonstrate to you this evening. So you said also the proposed solution in the back of the textbook. Are they any good for studying for the exams in conjunction with Learn? 100%. So the way that you need to practice your questions is you've got the example in the chapter. When you're happy with the example, you then go and try one of the questions in the learning unit, and you'll try doing the question without looking at the solution. Go back to the example, follow the example, and use the example to help you through the question. And only when you've finished, then go to the solution at the back of the textbook, and then use that to then identify where you went wrong, where you misunderstood, or where you were stuck. And then you'll use the solution to mark yourself and to identify where the bits were that you couldn't do on your own. And then when you've gone through that solution, you close the solution and you go and you try the question again, and you keep doing it until you can do the question from start to finish without looking at the solution. And when you can do that, then you know that you are ready for the exam, because that is obviously how you're going to have to perform for the exam. You'll have questions that are very similar to these questions and activities in the textbook, and you'll be expected to be able to complete them, obviously with no solution or textbook in front of you. So the solutions are the solutions to the questions in the textbook, so they are 1000% extremely useful. And of course, your workbook that you've got gives you templates for completing the questions in. So your workbook is a template for every single question that appears in the textbook, so that you've got a blank template to go and practice doing the question in. So maybe practice with a pencil so that you can rub it out and try the same question a couple of times until you know that you can get it right. And then the solution at the back of the textbook is then to go and mark yourself, check did you get the answer correct, and then to use it then obviously as to go and have a look to see what the answer should have been if you were stuck with anything. Okay, awesome. Any other questions? Anything else that you want to ask me? That was all that I really wanted to go through this evening. I said you've got the videos to have a look at. I've explained now how you can work the learn with your textbook and your workbook together with the solutions at the back. You've got your videos, you've got your ICE tasks to get on with. You know where you are in the pacer. So hopefully you've got enough to get on with this week. And as always, if as you are studying, you come across anything that you don't understand, then just send me a message and I'll do my very best to help you. Okay, guys, so I hope that's been helpful. And I'm trying not to keep it too long, so those who are listening to the recording can also get all the way through to the end. All right, so no more questions. Anything else that I can help you with? Not right now. Okay, in that case, I'm going to stop the recording now, and I'll wish you a very good evening and have a lovely long weekend, or not long if you were off today. Otherwise, enjoy your public holiday tomorrow, and then I will see you in a little while on our next collab. And I hope to hear from you before that, and obviously we'll be chatting in announcements in between that as well. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Lovely to chat to you this evening. And I'll chat again soon.